The chocolate bar that changed everything. Danielle Thompson had been hungry 4 hours, the ache gnawing at her stomach like an old, unwelcome companion. She worked the register at the Brooklyn market, fluorescent lights buzzing above her like tired wasps. It was just past 10 p.m., and she hadn't eaten anything hot all day. Still, Danielle didn't complain. Complaining didn't pay the rent or keep the lights on. Her phone buzzed with another call from Mr. Griffin, her landlord. She let it go to voicemail. She already knew his message. Rent was overdue. Costs were rising, and sympathy was in short supply. Understanding wouldn't cover the balance anyway. The bell over the door jingled softly, breaking Danielle from her spiraling thoughts. An older man stepped inside, moving carefully, as though the floor itself might shift beneath his boots. His hair was silver, his clothes plain. His hands bore the rough memory of work, but now they trembled slightly as he picked up a plastic basket. Danielle had worked in retail long enough to notice details. This wasn't someone who usually shopped for himself. Widowed, maybe, or living alone after a divorce. He moved through the aisles with deliberate attention, picking up items and putting them back down with the precision of someone counting every cent. Milk, bread, the barest essentials. Then he stopped at the candy bars. His hand hovered over a chocolate chip bar. He studied it far too long for something so small, then set it back down as if it were too extravagant a luxury. That simple gesture pierced Danielle. She'd done that math herself countless times. Necessity versus dignity. Survival versus something sweet to make life bearable. When the man placed his few items on the counter, bread, milk, nothing more, Danielle rang them up with the warmth she had trained into her voice even when her bones ached. That'll be $6.47. The man reached into a battered leather wallet, laying out each bill and coin with painstaking precision. And then he hesitated. His eyes drifted toward the candy shelf, where that bar sat waiting. His pause wasn't about money. It was something deeper. Danielle made a quiet decision. She slipped the bar into his bag before he could protest. "On the house," she said softly. His eyes flicked up, startled. For the first time, something cracked in his weathered face, like a curtain pulling back to reveal grief long hidden. "I don't need it," he murmured. "Maybe not," she replied gently. "But sometimes we all need a little extra to get through the day. And sometimes it helps to be reminded people still look out for each other." He nodded slowly, words failing him. "Finally, thank you. You don't know what this means." Danielle smiled, already turning to the next task. She didn't know his name, nor did she know she had just altered the course of her own life, because the man she had helped was Nathaniel Carter, CEO of Carter Retail Group, the company that owned the Brooklyn market and nearly 300 other stores across 12 states. Nathaniel Carter had built his empire through decades of ruthless efficiency, but lately, his empire felt like a stranger's. 6 months earlier, he had buried his wife, Sarah, after a long battle with cancer. 3 months after that, his board began whispering about succession. For the first time in 40 years, he caught glimpses of himself in mirrors and didn't recognize the man staring back. So he had started walking into his own stores incognito, in thrift store jackets, driving rentals, trying to remember what business used to mean before it became only numbers. The Brooklyn market was supposed to be failing. Competition was fierce. Profits were down. By every metric, it should have closed months ago. Yet somehow, sales were steady. Customers lingered. And now, sitting on a subway train with a $1.29 chocolate bar warming in his pocket, Nathaniel thought he understood why. It wasn't about price tags. It was about people like Danielle. Over the following weeks, Nathaniel returned often, watching quietly from the aisles. He saw Danielle in action. She guided a teenager short on lunch money toward affordable choices. She helped Mrs. Patterson find a generic prescription that cost half as much. She gently stacked products at lower heights for Mr. Valdez, who struggled with arthritis. "This isn't scalable business," Nathaniel muttered one afternoon, almost testing the words aloud. Danielle overheard and glanced up. "Maybe not everything's supposed to be scalable," she said. "Some things work better when they stay human-sized." Her words lingered in him more than any boardroom presentation. But kindness in corporations often draws the wrong kind of attention. Rick Vivan, the store manager, had grown suspicious of the mysterious man loitering near the aisles. At the same time, he began documenting Danielle's infractions every instance where she went beyond the bare minimum of customer service. In his eyes, compassion equaled poor judgment. The breaking point came one grey Tuesday morning. Mrs. Rodriguez's EBT card glitched at checkout. Her groceries began melting on the conveyor belt as the line behind her grew impatient. Tears welled in her eyes at the humiliation of being publicly poor. Danielle made her choice in seconds. She swiped her own card and covered the $23.47 bill. Vivan had it all on security footage. Within hours, Danielle was called into the back office, accused of theft, and fired. She walked out into the cold November wind, carrying a small cardboard box of belongings, her coffee mug, a photo of her brother Marcus at his high school graduation, 2.5 years of quiet triumphs erased with one act of mercy. Nathaniel watched from his car, fury boiling beneath his comm. Had seen this scene before. Good people sacrificed to profit margins, but never had it cut so close. He dialed his phone. This time, his call would change everything. By nightfall, news spread. A student named Rishad, working on a school project, had recorded Danielle paying for Mrs. Rodriguez's groceries. His video went viral, capturing not only Danielle's firing, but the larger injustice, a system that punished kindness and rewarded cruelty. The next evening, Brooklyn Market's parking lot filled with neighbors, folding chairs, and handmade signs. Justice for Danielle. People over profit. Local news trucks rolled in. The story had all the elements: a struggling worker, a cold corporation, a community rallying. And then Nathaniel stepped forward. He revealed his identity before the cameras. My name is Nathaniel Carter. I am the CEO of Carter Retail Group. And Danielle Thompson represents everything right about this company and everything wrong with the way we've been running it. The crowd erupted. For once, the corporate mask dropped, and people saw not just a CEO, but a man choosing compassion over policy. In the weeks that followed, Nathaniel met privately with Danielle. I need your help, he admitted, sliding a letter across the CAF table. It was a job offer, community relations consultant, part-time, with full tuition support for night classes. Help me rebuild this company the way it should be, serving communities, not exploiting them. Danielle hesitated. What if I change? What if this job turns me into someone who sees only profit margins instead of people? Nathaniel shook his head. You won't, because you'll remember Brooklyn Market. You'll remember that chocolate bar. 6 months later, Danielle stood at the grand reopening of the very store that had fired her. It was now renamed Carter Community Market Brooklyn Flagship. The harsh fluorescent lights had been replaced with warm LEDs. Community art covered the walls. Seating areas invited neighbors to linger and connect. Prices were fair, shelves stocked with dignity in mind. But the greatest changes were invisible. Retention up 90%, customer satisfaction at record highs, theft nearly eliminated. People cared because they felt cared for. Danielle walked the aisles that day, smiling as Marcus, now a freshman in college, volunteered at a checkout lane. She paused at the candy display. A single chocolate bar caught her eye. She picked it up, turned it in her hand, and smiled. Sometimes the smallest acts, the ones that seem inconsequential, change everything.